work are invaded, it is unconscionable, it is uncalled for, it is uncouth, and it is wholly inappropriate and illegal. And I stand with you, Mayor, in strong condemnation of such behavior.
Thank you all for your words. I appreciate that, and I value your service. And so thank you for being here tonight. I have shifting mood a little bit. I have two kind of ceremonial matters today. One is that is a recognition of Arbor Day, and I will just describe this very briefly. Arbor Day actually originated in 1872 in Nebraska, where the Nebraska Board of Agriculture set aside a day for the planting of trees. And Arbor Day is a recognition of that day. And I have been asked to read a proclamation, and I am not going to read the whole proclamation, but I will read the very end. Now, therefore, I, Lucy Vennis, Mayor of City of Eugene, following the example set by Governor Brown for the state of Oregon, do hereby proclaim April 2021 to be Arbor Month. And I urge all citizens to participate and care for our city's urban forest. Further, I urge all citizens to plant trees to gladden the heart and promote the well-being of this and future generations. And my second, catching up, that was April, and my next proclamation, my next statement relates to May. And May is Bike Month, and it has been celebrated around the country since the 1950s, and here in Eugene for the past 8 years. The month is full of bike-related activities for all ages. There will be a few physically distanced, COVID-safe group rides this year, and there are also plenty of online and self-directed events as well. I encourage everyone to try out biking somewhere this month if you haven't done it in a while, as biking will help us meet our climate goals and it can make us a healthier community. And you can find the list of events at webbikelane.org. So thank you all for bearing with me through those little ceremonial announcements. And with that, I'm assuming we are finished with items and we can go on to the consent calendar. So I'll turn to Councilor Ye.
Thanks, Mayor. So I move to approve the items on consent calendar 1.
Second.
All in favor, please raise your hands. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Thank you very much. That passes. And with that, we're ready to proceed to the public forum. The public forum is an opportunity for individuals to speak to the City Council on any city-related issues except for those items which have already been heard by a hearings official. When it is your turn, the moderator will announce your name and promote you to panelist status. Please state your name clearly, and for Eugene residents, your ward if known, before beginning your comments. Again, each person will have 2.5 minutes to speak. If you are watching the meeting, the timer should be visible. A yellow light will come on when you have 15 seconds to complete your comments. The red light indicates the end of your 2.5 minutes. When your time has concluded, the moderator will demote you back to attendee status and move on to the next speaker. For those who have connected to the meeting via phone and don't have the benefit of seeing the timer, please be aware that your microphone will be muted at the 2.5 minute mark. And with that, I will turn it over to our moderator to begin the public forum.
Thank you, Mayor. We have 15 speakers tonight for the public forum. Our first speaker is Meg O'Ryan, and our next will be T. Lipton. Meg, can you unmute?
Yes. Am I good?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. My name is Meg O'Ryan. I live in downtown Eugene, and I wanted to comment on the military jet that flew over downtown 2 Saturdays ago. My first, it felt problematic in a few different ways, but one of the bigger ones for me was that it flew over Washington Jefferson Bridge, which is currently home to hundreds of our unhoused community members. many of whom are vets and many of whom are experiencing mental health issues. The loud jet, I imagine, is a PTSD trigger for many. I have a handful of anecdotes that I've collected while talking to people about this in the last couple of weeks. And while I realize the anecdotes are not scientific proof, they are the voices of our community. One man dropped to his knees at the farmer's market and sobbed for 15 minutes. He was a veteran, sorry, a little emotional. Luckily, someone was there to comfort him. Another mom of 2 children, one of her children thought it was 9/11, the other thought it was an earthquake. All 3 were traumatized. I was at home, and my first thought after a year like we've had was, what now? Are we going to war? And I thought I should grab my children and run. A nurse who works night shift was disturbed and couldn't get back to sleep. My concern is that I don't think it aligns with city values. I wonder the environmental impact, I wonder the cost, and while I realize that there was probably a large amount of people who love the celebration of a jet flying over our city to celebrate the first football game, I think there might be another way that takes care of all of our community members and doesn't cause PTSD triggers and children to think that 9/11 is happening and people to think we're going to war. Something that doesn't harm the environment, something that doesn't cost thousands of dollars that we could be putting into something else. I wonder if there could be a parade. I don't know. I'm not a huge football fan, but I know other people are, and I'm sure there could be some brainstorming, and perhaps this year could be the last year that there is a military jet that flies over the city without warning or without apologies to the people that it harmed. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is going to be T. Lipton, and after that, it will be Nate.
Hi, can everybody hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, my name is T. Lipton. I live in Ward 1, and I've never spoken at a city council meeting before. I came here to say that I recently started doing, and probably in the last 5 or 6 months, street level mutual aid work in our community with our houseless population. And I wanted to share with the council what happened to me last night. I spent the last 3 hours of my Mother's Day with a 75-year-old houseless woman at the 7th and Jefferson 7-Eleven who had been discharged from the hospital with no safe place to sleep. It was obvious that she had edema in her legs and early onset either Alzheimer's or dementia. And after 3 unsuccessful hours and 2 visits by Cahoots, we were unable to find her a place to sleep that night. And I had to leave her at 11 p.m. after exhausting every resource on the curb at 7-Eleven. I'm here because that touched me very deeply. This is not the only instance of things like this I've seen. And I really want to urge the council to reallocate the payroll tax, the community safety initiative money to homeless services. We need affordable housing. We need no barriers housing for these members of our community who are falling through the cracks. I was in long pants and a t-shirt last night, and I was cold standing out there with her waiting. So I can imagine what it was like for her having to sit out on the curb all night long. It is heartbreaking and it is unacceptable that we as a city are not doing more to protect our community members, especially our elderly. There's nowhere for them to go. I also work with a woman at the 13th and Chambers Houseless Camp who is suffering multiple seizures, who is disabled, who is camping in a tent with no power to run her CPAP machine, causing her to have seizures on almost a daily basis, being harassed by the mentally ill who are also going untreated in our community and are on our streets. I just felt the need to come and speak tonight and share these experiences with you and urge you to do whatever it takes to build no barrier housing for these people. In other cities where they have done this, they've had high success rates of people within 2 years taking steps to better their lives on their own. And I believe that that could be something that could happen in Eugene. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker will be Nate, followed by Jacob.
Hello, and thank you for hearing me tonight. Like our previous speaker, I'm a mutual aid supporter in the city. I deliver mutual aid to our unhoused neighbors as often as I can, and pretty regularly. And I also just wanted to echo previous speakers' call that we need more money, especially from our CSI budget, moving into cahoots and housing solutions for our unhoused neighbors. 0 to 30,000 a year. If you make that much money, there's pretty limited options for renting in the city, for owning in the city, for camping in the city. We don't have campgrounds. The city could be leasing campgrounds from the Forest Service. The city could build some campgrounds. You know, it's a pretty easy thing to do, temporary campground. Having worked with the Forest Service in my youth, it's pretty simple to throw together a campground, you know, bring in some porta potties. I don't know why we can't manage to do that as a city. It seems like it's not that hard of a reach to make. Also want to put a shout out for Cahoots to get actual a raise, because I've thought about working at Cahoots and it's been kind of a thing I think about a lot. I'm like, hey, you know, that's a pretty good job. But then I've looked at how much they get paid, and, you know, 18 bucks an hour, I couldn't pay my rent, couldn't pay a mortgage on that. You know, it's not really a living wage. I mean, it is a living wage in our city, but not really. It's pretty hard to get by when you have a job that induces PTSD in a lot of people and is a really difficult job and is $10 under the national average for similar jobs. We're supposed to be setting a standard as a state that says Cahoots is like a big thing here. You know, we're doing great with Cahoots. Unfortunately, we're not paying them enough money to do their job. So if we could pay them $28 to $48 an hour, you know, that would be a much better start. Thank you so much for hearing me out on that. The last thing I want to say, getting a little emotional about that one, is I don't want to see the steam plant privatized. I don't want to see us negotiating to give away 3 acres of publicly owned prime real estate along the riverfront and subsidies to go to exclusive luxury neighborhood housing and bringing in new people. That's great, we can bring in new people, but we should also house our Eugenians who need housing now. Thank you for your time, and that's all I have to say.
Thank you, Nate. Our next speaker is Jacob, followed by Rob.
Hello there. My name is Jacob True. I'm from Ward 1. I'm a little bit flustered following those two very heartfelt testimonies. Yeah, just thinking about all the folks that are unhoused and all the, you know, wasted capacity that we have around here is breaking my heart. We have the funds to do it. The Community Safety Initiative is bringing in all this funding from the payroll tax they all enacted. So it should really be going to helping those that need it the most in the community, you know, helping with unhoused folks, and not to more police to evict them, shove them around so they go other places, cause more trauma. We don't need that. You know, as it is, so much of the money that we're spending on police services is inefficient and ineffective. We need to try a better system, something where we're addressing the problems that cause homelessness instead of you know, spending, you know, a huge portion of the Eugene City's budget on moving people around. It's not effective, it's not efficient. Please reallocate the CSI funds away from policing, inefficient policing, to addressing the causes of homelessness, and, you know, let's be a humane city. Thank you.
Thank you, Jacob. Our next speaker is Rob, followed by phone number ending in 327.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, great, thanks. Thank you everyone for just letting me speak tonight. I just have some short comments I want to make. I just wanted to take some time to respond to some of the comments that I heard from counselors in response to the information presented on the CSI engagement sessions and the work session a little earlier this evening. First, Councillor Clark mentioned that he would have preferred that the survey and the feedback from the community were focused more on the outcomes that community members would prefer rather than the methods that they prefer to be used. Just want to say that I think the methods that we use to address our concerns are absolutely the most important question. as it relates to our values, and that our values are reflected in the methods we choose to use to meet our goals. For example, we might presume that most people in our city do not want people to be unhoused in the city. We can imagine methods that accomplish this goal in ways that align with our values, as many people have already spoken about powerfully tonight, and ways that don't. Secondly, I wanted to respond to Councilor Zelenka, who discussed homelessness and mentioned that he felt that homelessness is, quote, not directly related to community safety, except maybe for the perception of it. I just want to complain about this assessment a bit, that the question of homelessness is not directly related to community safety. It's not an opinion that to be unhoused is to be less safe than to be housed. And so I'd urge Councilor Zelenka and anyone else who thought this was a reasonable way to frame this to consider what his statement that homelessness does not directly relate to community safety, but only to the perception of it. Consider what that means about who he considers to be part of the community and who he does not. Thank you.
Thank you, Rob. Our next speaker is the phone number ending in 327, and after will be Rachel Mary. Phone number ending in 327, can you unmute?
Yes, this is William Smith from Ward 1. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Great. I'd like to talk about wireless safety. Many of us are wondering why city leaders haven't shown more concern about the wireless towers that will soon be able to cook us with microwaves very quickly, like the 10 Dutch pedestrians that I described last forum. Or they'll continue cooking us more slowly with effects like cancer. The long history of this deceptive and harmful practice. Her interview by Joe Rogan is also highly recommended. Fortunately, as city leaders, you do have options. You can schedule a work session for public deliberation that is in fact fully allowed by the unanimous federal court decision 18-1129, or you can form a citizens committee, or you could pass a one-page declaration similar to that passed by the city of Easton, Connecticut, or all of the above. Finally, the health and safety of citizens and city workers, I believe, are depending on you to do what's right, even if it means moderating our desire for faster and
Thank you. Your time has concluded. Our next speaker is Rachel Mary, followed by Eli. Rachel Mary, can you please unmute?
Yes, now can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Thank you. I wanted to thank all the other members of our community who are part of the mutual aid group on the streets. I am actually a resident of Springfield, on the west side of Springfield. I may have actually accidentally directed some people here in regards to the Glenwood development that is soon to be potentially underway. And I want to let those people know that if they would like to make their voice heard, they need to contact the Springfield Economic Development Agency. However, I think that the way in which the Glenwood development relates to the homelessness issue in all of Lane County is pretty direct. There is a lot of resources and development that seem to be going towards developing more luxury housing, and the CIA going to the 65% was the proposal for the police department. Seems unreasonable when the community response is so overwhelmingly that we need to house our homeless, we need to provide them with mental health care services, we need to provide them with addiction services. I know that the Police Commissioner Skinner said that 33% of 911 calls are going unanswered. I feel as though if we simply made no barrier housing, that many of those 911 phone calls would not be necessary. I also want to echo what Nate said as far as I know people personally who have gone to work for Cahoots and who simply could not maintain that job because it did not pay them enough for what they were undergoing. They felt as though they didn't receive adequate training before being put out there on the streets. And that is what we need for this community. We need more well-trained, well-paid people responding to people who are out on the streets with needs that are nonviolent. And we need no barrier housing. And I guess that's all I have to add. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Rachel Mary, sorry. Our next speaker is Eli, followed by Zondi.
Thank you, Council. I live in Ward 1, and I'd like to echo many who commented this evening and ask the Council to put the public's money and land where their wards are, and to stop putting money towards criminalization and harm. Land acknowledgements are performative without action, and the city is currently planning to privatize public land at 1059 Willamette in the riverfront and give millions of dollars in public subsidies, as well as give away public land to white wealthy men, developers, and investors for luxury housing. What does the public get in response? Who knows? The city has admitted that it entered into negotiations around the steam plant without first determining the public benefit of the proposal. In 2021, over a year into a global pandemic, unprecedented economic and housing crises, and protests against violence of policing and for racial justice, the Eugene's government's disconnect with the public and what it's actually doing is, I'm getting a little bit emotional because of it. It just is, it's extreme. And to see the number of sweeps and ramping up throughout the pandemic and increasing, and the level of criminalization increasing, and to going back to what we know is not the solution. If we want homeless people off of the streets, we must stop criminalizing them first. And the solution to homelessness is permanent housing. And I agree with raises for Cahoots, if I didn't say that already, and echo many people. Thanks.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Zondi, followed by Candace King.
Can you hear me? Okay,
yes,
thank you.
We can hear you.
Thank you. First, I want to let all the counselors know that on Thursday, this Thursday from 5 to 7 p.m. Rico Perez of Calc and I will be meeting with someone from the city, I don't know who, as well as someone from Cornerstone Community Development. And the developers of 1059 Willamette have also been invited to this meeting, but as of yet, despite this invite standing for a week, we have not heard that they're willing to interface with us. And this is being hosted by Ibrahim Koulibaly, president of the NAACP. So if you're interested in a real conversation about what should happen with a $10 million public subsidy and what kind of housing can be supported with such a large subsidy, and the real potential for community land trust housing with real affordability covenants, I invite you all to watch. It'll be live streamed. And so if you go to Human Rights, Human Stories on Facebook, or just be in touch with me or Ibrahim Koulibaly, that's how you can access that. And that list of over a dozen organizations, which I sent to you, has now more than doubled. So it hadn't yet had Sunrise on it. It hadn't yet had Community Rights of Lane County, many, as I said, it's more than doubled. Over 25 organizations have signed on. And I think that I want you to consider what that really means. What process the city didn't engage in that all these organizations and these particular perspectives were left out of that planning, and consider that the same has happened at the riverfront. And so we can talk on next Wednesday, not 2 days, but a week from Wednesday, you will discuss the deal points for the steam plant. Those deal points will include at least $3 million in the financial gap. Okay, so think of from an Indigenous point of view, what it means that land is going to be given away to white men along with millions of dollars. What does that mean from an Indigenous point of view? Have you heard the phrase land back? It is about time that we have a center. If we're going to have a cultural center there, it ought to be.
Thank you. That concludes your time. Our next speaker is Candace King, followed by Mike McFarlane. Candace, can you unmute? We can't hear you. We can't. I will ask to unmute. All right, Candace, we will come back to you. And you will go after Mike McFarlane. So we will have Mike McFarlane and then Candace King.
Hello, everybody hear me? Hey, this is Mike McFarlane. I live in Ward 4. Thank you very much, Jennifer, for great leadership in my ward. I want to talk to you guys today about a good story. So this is, I don't have anything to complain about. I really wanted to say nice things. So take a deep breath, and this is good stuff. I was pretty vocal a few weeks ago regarding the riparian zone and camping. And I spoke out sort of heavily towards you, all of you, and said, hey, maybe we should get a few of you out to see what we're dealing with on the river with the Willamette River Keepers and the camping and all of that. Councillor Groves, Councillor Keating stepped up and went for a wonderful ride down the river with us, looked at some places that the city deserves some great credit for taking care of. A few areas that we could maybe improve on, but just really wanted to thank both those counselors for jumping in the boat and taking a look at the river in a way that I hope each one of the counselors will have a chance to do. Mayor Vinnes has also come out with us, and thank you for that. So that leaves a few more. So I want to invite the rest of you to come down and take a look at the river. You've driven down every street. You've seen the city from all different angles. This goes right through your city. It's our #1 resource, and we're doing great things down there. But we invite all of you to come out and take a look at where we have to go. So thank you all. I can't imagine why anybody would want to be a city councilor. Bless you all for what you have to go through and hear. But we need you right now. And again, thank you very much. Goodbye.
Thank you. Candace, you are up next, and it looks like you are unmuted if you want to.
Yes, thank you for your patience with that. I had to reset my app settings. So that said, I'm Candace King. I live in Ward 1. I serve on the Land Equity Coalition. I'm also the newest board member of Whitebird, and I work for Homes for Good Housing as the housing liaison for Lane County. All that said, I'd like to recite a poem to you all and then follow with some commentary. Imprison the man or flog the woman who steals the goose from off the commons, yet let the greater villain loose who takes the commons from under the goose. That is a 17th century limerick. It's a classic English poem related to the scourge of English enclosure. And that is what I witnessed the city of Eugene engaging in when we consider taking public dollars and, for instance, $20+ from my paycheck each month to funnel into programs that do not serve the purpose of actual community safety. For me, living in Ward 1, community safety means making sure that when I walk down my streets, I don't see people suffering and suffering the risk of all of the risks that come with homelessness, including harassment from police, as there were today, right on my street, right in front of our homes in Ward 1. Granted, there are safety issues in this community which deserve attention that would result in a physical altercation or confrontation, but the majority of the unsafe situations in this community involve not having affordable, appropriate, clean, and safe housing. The other concern that I have with the CSI being delivered essentially to the police of Eugene versus, say, an organization like Cahoots is, what kind of example is Eugene leading as a city? And that example concern extends to the fact that we would then take publicly owned lands and allocate them to already wealthy, already established development corporations when we have people in this community who are housed, who can't afford to sustain their housing. We have people in this community who are unhoused because they are disabled or handicapped or elderly and they cannot use the internet. That is the experience that I see every single day, day in, day out, as the facilitator of the Housing Navigator meetup of Lane County, as the housing liaison.
Thank you, Candace. That concludes your time. Our next speaker is Matthew, followed by Max.
Oh my gosh, hello?
Yes, we can hear you.
Oh, sorry,
this project will have a meaningful impact on the availability of truly affordable housing in Eugene or other vital community resources that are currently lacking. In October 2020, Mayor Finnis issued a proclamation on Indigenous People Days, which she stated was, quote, one step on the path to replacing harmful historic untruths with truth about displacement, genocide, and loss, resilience, and belonging. Indigenous People Day pushes against erasure, as well as, quote, we are inspired by local and regional Indigenous people who continue to fight against the systemic racism and injustice inflicted by the United States government. We are committed to improving our city's actions that pursue a higher quality of life and well-being for our Indigenous communities. And, quote, as mayor, I stand with city leadership for inclusivity and the recognition of past harm and offer our commitment to work towards change. I feel that if the city accepts the private for-profit proposals they received for 1059 Willamette and the 3-acre steam plant site, they will be turning their back on their commitment to work towards change in the systemic racism and injustices inflicted not just by the federal government of the US, but also the state of Eugene and the state of Oregon, and the